Hi, everybody. I wanted to say a couple of things by way of introduction to these two unique theories, feminist ethics and virtue ethics. So both feminist ethics and virtue ethics represent a real departure from the sorts of theories we've been looking at so far. The feminist contribution to ethics is a truly embodied perspective, even an emotional perspective. And you'll remember that we've been talking all along about how ethics should depend on reason. But the feminists said, look, reason is fine, it gets you some places, but really we have to look at the whole person, a network of relationships, the kinds of people that people care about, the kinds of intimate concerns that we have for those who are closest to us. And you'll see that for the feminists comes most particularly in the maternal instinct. But this idea of looking at an embodied sense of self, an emotive sense of self, is very different. And I think you all might be convinced, I know I am, that it's something we can't leave out of an ethical framework. Likewise, virtue ethics that comes to us from Aristotle is about who you are. It's about your character. It's considered an ethics of being over doing. So it's not about looking at case-by-case situations or, questioning, is it okay to murder? Let's analyze the act of murder. It's about what kind of person you are if you would want to murder or if you do murder. It's about the kind of reflection that these ethical actions would have on you as a certain sort of human. Now, a little bit more about this. So this idea of virtue ethics comes to us from Aristotle, very, very ancient philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy, but it is so true still today. In fact, there's been a big movement in ethics to revitalize virtue ethics because it does feel very relevant in our contemporary society. In fact, one of Aristotle's main concerns for human life was how we can be engaged citizens, how we can be politically involved. And for him to be a fully ethical person does mean being politically involved. It doesn't mean just caring about yourself. Maybe you're a good person. Maybe you do some nice things for people close to you. It means that you are invested in helping everyone to come to a place of true human flourishing. And in pursuing your own virtues, you kind of automatically bring everybody with you to a better place. So one truth I just want to mention that Aristotle really brought forward in his idea of virtue theory is the idea that human beings are imitators. This is a very fundamental aspect of who we are, the essence of how human beings learn, how we even create a self. At the very youngest of ages, we see babies imitate. They imitate words, they imitate gestures. And we're all always imitating the others that we come in contact with in our social world. And Aristotle said that you need to recognize this truth of imitation because if you don't, you are going to unconsciously become like those around you. It's better to recognize that we are all imitators and then seek out those people who you want to imitate, role models, people, friends, people around you in your world. Otherwise, you're just going to be like those that you are kind of apathetically surrounding yourself by. I always think of I love the film Mean Girls. Tina Fey is awesome in my book. So the character of Caddy, at a certain point when she is spying on the plastics, her real friends say to her, you are no longer spying, you've become one of them. You are one of them. And I think of this in light of virtue theory because that's really what Aristotle is telling us, is that by not paying attention to what we're imitating, we will become something that we don't want to become. And that you have to be conscious of the virtues that you want to imitate. And surround yourself with people who have those virtues in order to really nurture these traits within yourself. And then as you read along in the book and as you look at the notes below, you'll see even more too that virtue theory is about putting these things into practice habitually in our life. It's not enough to just say, oh, these few times I was patient, look how patient I was. It's about over the course of a lifetime, demonstrating patience over and over again, literally exercising the muscle of patience in the same way that you would exercise your muscles if you were trying to learn a new sport or activity. Many of you, if you were in New York City, you might have seen the marathon a few weeks ago. I love watching the marathon. But in order to train for something like the marathon, people have to practice in small steps over a period of weeks and months to be able to run those 26 miles. And virtue theory, we don't necessarily think of our like ethical faculties in the same way that we would think of our muscles, but that's very much what he's saying, is that we have to exercise these traits in ourselves over and over, daily, on a daily basis, in order to finally be able to say that we have taken these virtues in and been able to reflect them around us. And one last thought about this, which I think is especially relevant to all of us with the advent of social media. Aristotle very strongly believed that virtue was displayed in friendship. It was displayed in friendship, and it was also nurtured in friendship. And again, back to my point about Mean Girls. But for him, friendship was not just the 6,000 friends you have on Facebook or Instagram. Friendship, he had very high standard for friendship. In fact, in the book Nicomachean Ethics, where he talks about virtue theory, he says that the kinds of friends he's thinking of are the people who live with you, who see you day after day after day, who share meals with you, who are the ones who can really say what sort of virtues you are able to display in your life. It's kind of like the real world, right? Like the people, when you're really living life together and things get real, then we know who a person really is, what their character is really made of. And that's the kind of stuff that Aristotle is speaking of. So read below. I hope that you'll explore all the information that I posted for you. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.